This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up? Real MVPs, Ricky Widmer here, and welcome into another episode, our last episode before the NFL mock draft of the Draft Room right here on MVP Sports. I am joined, as I always am. Last podcast, we will not see your face, JD. How you doing today, JD? Tonight, as we're recording this on Thursday.
I'm doing fantastic, and yes, this will be the last faceless video.
How does it feel to be hidden for just one more week? Well, really, for the people watching on YouTube that aren't patrons, if you want this 4 days early, go check out our Patreon page or become a member. How does it feel that they, you're still under the mask? Really, for them, it's like, okay, 4 days and they'll see your face, but this is the last time you'll be under your Joe Burrow mask.
Honestly, I'm kind of scared to give up of being faceless because now I'm just gonna have to watch what I do, I guess. I don't know.
Are you CM Punk? Are you the voice of the voiceless? Or in this case, the voice of the faceless?
Hey, man, I'm okay being that guy.
But we will see JD's face Thursday, as for those of you on Patreon, you're seeing this on Friday. For those of you not a patron, you're seeing this on Monday. We're going to be live Thursday for the NFL draft. JD, I will ask you right now on the spot, because this is what I love to do, even though I don't love to do it. What time do you want to go live? That's the better question. How early before the draft do you want to go live? 15 minutes or a half hour?
I was going to say 15 minutes.
15 minutes is perfect. So we will be live 15 minutes before the draft. That is, as Pete would say in the league, it is decided. It is decided. We'll be on 15 minutes before the draft on Thursday. So come and check it out with us. Watch our reactions. We may have some guests. Who knows? But today we are talking about, we got some jam-packed topics for you. We're talking about the Texans because everyone loves them, and we haven't talked about the number 2 pick enough. We're talking about a potential trade featuring Da Bears and Steel Town. Going to be talking about Quentin Johnson. Then we're going to wrap everything up talking about some prospects who we might not have talked about, or that Ricky has talked about ad nauseum in other aspects. We're going to talk about the guys we like outside the top 30 to wrap everything up. But JD, let's start with the Texans and setting it all up for you. The reason why I brought this up is there were rumors heading into my last mock that the Texans were very heavily rumored to be taking Will Anderson at 2. Now there's rumors that, really the only quarterback they like is Bryce Young, and will they trade the pick? What if Bryce Young's taken before them? In your opinion, with everything that could happen, yes, the Panthers will dictate what happens depending on who they take at number 1. In your mind, I am putting you in the hot seat. You are the GM of the Texans. What is your battle plan coming into this week, heading into Thursday night, the first round?
Well, if Bryce Young is my guy and he gets taken, and I'm not comfortable with any of the other quarterback options, because from what we've been hearing, it sounds like the Texans don't really know what they're going to do at quarterback now that their guy is supposedly the favorite to go number 1. So in that case, if I'm not comfortable with any of those other quarterbacks, then I'm going with my best player available, which is Will Anderson Jr.
I mean, yeah, that's what I would like. It's simple. So the reason why I bring this up too is on my mock draft, we had some comments. I did want to read some of them because some of them are relevant to the situation, one of which I replied to. And we basically had Sarah commenting on how the Texans don't have a quarterback at number 2, but then I had them taking JSN at 12. Why? I have to explain my reasoning. Said, there is no one to throw him the football, so why do we need him? if you think that Davis Mills or Case Keenum is going to get it done, you're sadly mistaken. This is why I would take CJ Stroud. I keep dropping the R. Stroud at number 2 instead of wasting the pick on Will Anderson Jr. And this is just my overall thought with drafting in general. I've never been somebody that's like, oh, I like this wide receiver over that wide receiver. Oh, the one I like is taken. Let me just take the next one because that's what I need. I've always been someone that's like, well, if the one I like is gone, I have to reevaluate things. Is there another positional need that, hey, I like this guy better than the wide receiver that's available? Like, what is going into things? And for me, how I look at the Texans, and JD, I was just telling you this before we hit the record button. Texan fans, I'm speaking to you right now. You need to think of this as more of a marathon and not a sprint. Any quarterback that you get, if you take CJ, if you take Bryce, if you take Anthony, if you take Will, even if you later on, by the way, in that mock draft, Titans fans tend to ignore this. I had them go with the quarterback, JD. They just got Hendon Hooker at the end of the first round. So you got your quarterback. But I digress. No matter what quarterback you get, they are not changing the landscape of your team immediately. Just in case, like if you get CJ, if you get Bryce, you're not going to be, boom, a playoff team right away. You still need to build a team. You need a team. And for me, one of the biggest things I've always said, I'll say it now. I said it when Mark and I used to do draft content way back in the day. There are 2 positions that are the most important position in all of football, JD. The first one is quarterback. The second one is pass rush. And if you're the Texans, just like you said, if you're sold on Bryce Young and he's gone, don't settle for CJ. Don't settle for AR just because they're a quarterback. Look at it and go, hey, if I have Will Anderson ranked higher than the other quarterbacks, you know what? I'm not going to panic. I'm going to take the guy that's highest on my board. And the thing with Will Anderson is he fits one of the 2 most important positions that any team needs in order to be successful in the NFL.
Well, yeah. Like with Will Anderson, again, I was high on Will Anderson when he was a freshman. He's been a freak. Yes, last year he had a little bit of a down season, but again, I agree. I'm right there with you with everything. Like we're a week away from the draft, and on my big board, he's number 1. He's a freak, and yeah, if you can't get your quarterback, then like you said, you go with the guy who can get after the quarterback. And your division is starting to build a decent quarterback. Each team has a decent quarterback or is getting there. So you got to get someone that can disrupt their game plans.
Well, I'm trying to think. In my head right now, I'm trying to think of the division without looking at it. Colts, no.
Yes.
Yeah, Colts, Jaguars. Who am I missing? Texans, Colts, Jaguars, and Titans. That's right. I forget about them. So the thing I was going to ask you, well, first I'll say that it's not really, in my mind, it's not really that the rest of the division has quarterbacks. It's that you're looking at Jacksonville and what they did this year. Like, oh man, they gave Trevor Lawrence a competent head coach. And not only did they make the playoffs, they won their first playoff game. Like, it might not be long before the Jaguars are just running the South, unless there's a team that goes, hey, we got to do something. Now, the other 2 teams in that division, Colts and Titans, are both rumored to be in quarterback markets. The Titans to me is interesting, not because of Tannehill. I think Tannehill is done. It's Malik Willis. Are they sold on Malik Willis? I wouldn't personally sit there and go, oh, we have Willis, we don't need a quarterback. If you like one of the ones here and think he's better than Malik, go ahead and take him. But the question I was going to ask you, if you're the Texans, let's say Bryce Young is gone. Your quarterback that you like is gone. Would you still take Will Anderson and that's the only thing you're doing? Or if a team went ring-a-ding-ding on the phone, would you think about trading the pick in order to getting more assets, getting more players in this draft to help fill out a team, and then say, hey, we're filling out the young team. We'll see what we do this year. Next year, we will attack free agency really hard because we're getting our future quarterback next year.
So I would just stick and pick Will Anderson.
I like that.
Just
stick and pick.
Yeah, just because the Texans have future assets already, and you can't just keep pushing everything to future years, in my opinion. So if you have a chance to take the best player in the draft, I would do it. And then next year, you may not be great, or maybe you'll finish a little bit better than you did this year. But I just don't think it's worth going back to the later first round this year. And then because you're obviously not going to get as good of a player. And then next year, who knows? Whatever team you trade with, who knows how they will finish at the end of that season and what pick you're getting. Are you going to get a pick in the late 20s? Or are you going to be getting a top 10 pick? I just don't think it's worth that risk.
Yeah, I mean, right now, looking at the future picks, next year, the Texans have 2 firsts, their own and Cleveland's pick. The only other extra picks they have is they have Cleveland's 4th rounder, the Cowboys' 6th rounder, and then in the 7th round, they picked up picks from the Chiefs and the Saints. However, the Texans, their own 6th, went to Cleveland in the Deshaun Watson deal, I believe. And now it belongs with the Falcons because the Browns and the Falcons made a trade with that pick. So, yeah, you got the Cowboys pick in the 6th, but your own is kind of gone. So you only still have that one. But, yeah, I agree with you. I would still, if it was me, I would field calls. I'm the kind of person, if I was a GM, I would always be fielding the call. Because if there's a offer that comes, basically, if there's an offer I can't refuse, then, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take it. But most of the time, it's okay, I'm entertaining this to see if you can wow me, to see if you can get me to trade the pick. I'm assuming that, and yet again, this is coming from maybe commenters as well, and I'll ask you is, do you think if the Colts or the Titans called the Texans, do you think there would be any well, hey, you know what, we're going to ask you to pay a lot more than we would ask a different team just because you're in the same division as us?
Then I'd be okay making that trade. But again, like you said, I think you would have to ask for a little more. I think we've already established that if it's the Colts who are trying to move up to 2, then I don't think you're going to get that much return either way, just because you're in the same division. But if they were to give you multiple firsts, then I'm talking 2 to 3 first rounders, which I don't think they would. But that's the only way I'm accepting that trade.
Last Texan question I have for you. So Dan Orslowski today on Get Up said that he did a whole segment where they just had talked about them trading the pick. And then they asked him what would you do? And he went on this long spree about how he would take Anthony Richardson if he was the Texans at number 2. I'm not going to straight up put you in that situation. I'm not going to say would you pick AR? I'm kind of broadening the field a little bit. Let's say you're the Texans and you've decided, you know what, Bryce Young is gone. We are going to go quarterback at number 2. You're taking a quarterback. It just depends on which one. Which quarterback would you choose if you were the Texans? Would it be CJ? Would it be Anthony? Or would it be Will?
It'd be CJ. honestly, if I were the GM and none of these other implications were happening where I'm not sold on the other guys, I'm picking CJ at number 2.
Okay.
For the Texans. I think he's the best quarterback. I like him better than Bryce Young. And I just think the Texans could do really well with CJ going forward.
I'll ask you this, because we've just basically been playing the hypothetical. Who do you think the Panthers take at 1?
See, man, if you would have asked me 2 days ago, I'm saying CJ.
Yeah, like,
but now,
right?
But now it's like, oh, Bryce Young's the favorite. I still want to say it's going to be CJ. I'm not sure. Maybe those rumors about the Panthers trying to trade out of 1 were actually real, and this is them trying to get some trade calls coming in or something. But I want to say it's still going to be CJ, but I honestly have no idea.
Yeah, because like, yet again, if it was me and you're saying, Ricky, gun to the head, which quarterback are you taking? You have to take one at 1. I would take CJ Stroud. That's the one that I would take. To me, I've always had it to where even from like the beginning of the year, I always like beginning of the year, I'm like, okay, if you're watching 2 years ago film, basically not this year, but last year's college football season, the year before, I was like, Bryce Young was number 1 coming in. But I think over the part of this season, CJ jumped for me that he's number 1. I like what CJ can do for me and the possibilities with him more than a Bryce Young. However, there's a second thought in my head. And yet again, some people, I will say, might take this and go, Ricky, this is you being just lazy. I'm just throwing it out here. So back in the day, when there was, basically back in the day, I'm going to say before Tua, before Jalen Hurts, when a quarterback came out of Alabama, we even said this about Mac Jones. When a quarterback came out of Alabama, there was a stigmatism, right? That's the word I'm looking for? Stigmatism? No, I'm thinking stigmata. Stigma. There was a stigma with them where it's, oh, they're from Alabama. They're not going to pan out in the NFL. What quarterback from Alabama has panned out in the NFL? My question is flip side to this. Because of what we've seen with Jalen Hurts and now him becoming the highest paid quarterback or the highest paid player in the NFL, whatever it was this week, is there a little bit of grain to the salt that it's like, hey, Bryce Young's a good player, but the reason that he's number 1 maybe on some people's boards is A, the draft class is weak, and 2, people see Jalen Hurts and just assume, oh, Alabama quarterbacks are amazing now.
Well, we also got to remember Jalen Hurts also that transferred to OU.
Good point.
So, I mean, that's where he kind of like, yeah, he did good on Alabama, but he kind of made his draft stock from OU. But
that's good for Alabama, brought them to a national championship before getting benched at halftime of that that natty game.
Yeah, but
thank you, Tua, for bringing it home.
Yeah,
that's
but I don't know.
Saying, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not sure that he's getting all the hype because he's from Bama. I'm sure that helps, but I think what it really is last year, like you said, sure, he was the number 1 player coming in, but people still had their doubts because of the talent he had around him. But this year, it's a lot of people gave him the praise because that Bama offense wasn't nearly as good as in years past. Without him, they might have only won like 4 or 5 games. So I think people are just in love with that ability to lead a not so great roster. But what it comes down to is the size, weight, and those like measurements for him.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the Texans do. I think the Panthers stay at 1, obviously, take quarterback. I think that if Bryce is there, Bryce is the pick. If not, we see Will Anderson, but who knows? Texans could be the first one that we see come draft night that go ahead and make a trade. And speaking of trades, moving on, let's kind of segue over. There was a deal that I had in my last mock that some people said, no way it happens. Yet again, love YouTube comments because, JD, I've learned something, especially this year from YouTube comments. One, they're masters of knowing whether or not trades will happen. And two, the one thing that I've learned, and I'm gracious that the YouTube comments have told me this, apparently YouTube knows the values of everything. They know everything that a GM, like, no, that's too much. No, that's too little. And they don't see that, hey, maybe there's some deals where a team wins and a team loses, but the deal still gets done. I digress, though. The deal we're talking about is, the first I heard about it was when I looked up before my mock draft. It was, his name was EJ Snyder from the Bootleg podcast. I actually found it from the Sports Illustrated Steelers site, which curated him. I'll be honest, I don't know EJ. I know that he does, did some research on him, does some stuff with I think it's Windy City Gridiron, which is an SB Nation site, said that he's heard that the Steelers are looking to move up, especially with the Chicago Bears. I don't know if he's an insider. I don't know if he's got sources, but I was a little skeptical. Then today, as we're getting ready for the podcast, saw Peter King talked about it. I'm like, okay, that's a source that I can hold on to and say, yes, I say this is reliable. EJ, not saying that you're not. I just don't know who you are. Here's the point. The rumors are that the Steelers are trying to move up to number 9. The Bears sit at number 9. First question I'm going to ask you, JD, before we get into the Steelers moving up, I want to take a look at the Bears side first. In your mind, should the Bears be looking to trade back from number 9 if a team calls?
I would say if that team's within the top 20, then sure, get more assets. They've already moved back once, and clearly they're okay with the trade back. So I would say do it. You could fill out your roster more. I know Bears fans are really high on the team, but they still have a lot of holes, in my opinion, that they could fill. And I don't think there's that much of a gap between the 9th best player in this class to the 20th. But if it's a team outside the top 20 that are willing to trade up, then I probably am turning that down.
I mean, so to me, it comes down to three positions. Well, really 2, but like 2 of them are on the same part. It comes down to tackles, D linemen, and edge rushers. With the pick that I am getting in the first 4 or from you, can I get one of the guys? Like, for example, if it's the Steelers, this is pick 17, so it's a top 20 pick. If I feel like, depending on, because you can kind of get a sense at how the draft is falling, even though sometimes it's hard to predict, but like, if I could get a Nolan Smith, like if it's like, okay, I'm going to draft, like trade back to 17 because everything I'm hearing is that Nolan Smith will be there. Or if, I'm trading back to 17 because I can get more draft assets and I know a Broderick Jones will most likely be there. Like anything like that, I could look at and go, if I'm the Bears, trade back, because the Bears' MO should be get the best player you can, but also while getting draft assets. You're trying to build a team around Justin Fields. How do you do that? You get as many picks as possible. Steelers at 17 is exactly what you said. It's in the top 20. I feel like there's a chance that Nolan Smith could be there. Broderick Jones could be there, depending on if there's trade-ups or not. There's other, like you can go with Darnell Wright is in that range. You can also go with, I always screw up his first name, and I think I'm screwing up his last name, in Concy, the D lineman from Pitt. You could take him there. You can still get a quality player at 17. My question for you, oh, go ahead. I didn't know.
No, I was just going to say with that, like, because let's just, like, the rumors are that the Bears are probably most likely to get, or they want to get Jalen Carter.
Yeah.
At 9. Well, if you, like, I'm just going to say what you said. If you get Kalijah Cansey at 17, I mean, of course, Jalen Carter's the better prospect, but Kalijah Cansey, he's probably my favorite prospect in this year's class.
Really?
If I'm being honest, like, not number one on my big board, but he's the player I'm most intrigued with. I've watched his film and I love him. I think he'll be a fantastic 3-tech, but yes, there's a drop off between talent between Carter and Cansey, but if you can get Cansey plus another first round pick or an early second or something like that, then why not?
You said something that makes me pose this question. Is Carter even going to be there? Like, so, okay. We're jumping the gun a little bit here, but I like it. One of the big things is some people say, oh, the Steelers want to tackle at 9. Other people say, oh, they want Jalen Carter at 9. JD, I don't know about you. Anything is possible, but I don't think Jalen Carter will be there at 9. If he is, something is wrong. We have had so many trades. There are 5 quarterbacks gone in the first round. Someone traded up for a non-quarterback. I don't think Jalen Carter gets to 9. Your thoughts? Am I right? Am I wrong? What do you think?
Yeah, as draft day approaches, my gut feeling is telling me that somebody's gonna trade. If Carter falls out of the top 5, I think someone trades up to 6.
You think so?
Or 7.
6 is the Lions, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I could see the Lions, and I think the Lions are a candidate to move back further. So I could see somebody trade up with the Lions and then just snag them there. Like, I know it's not much of a difference from 6 to 9, but with I feel like Carter's been penciled in as the 9th overall pick already, and I'm not sure if I'm buying that.
Yeah, I don't. Like, with me, I think that if he's there at 5, the Seahawks should take him.
I would agree. I think that the fit's good there.
Like, the Seahawks to me have been a team where I feel like they could get Carter at 5, they can get an edge rusher at 20. That's a perfect draft if I'm a Seahawk fan. Like, first round. Like, you get 2 of your biggest needs, 2 solidified players. To me, I'm on the other side. First off, before I go into the trade, I want to ask you your thoughts on the value I had. I'll tell you the trade I had for those of you who might not have seen my mock. Steelers, all they would be getting is the 9th overall pick, obviously. The Steelers would give up their first round pick at 17, their 4th round pick at 120, and then their first round pick next year.
Yeah, I want a 2nd rounder or a 3rd rounder instead of that 4th.
Say that again. You cut out a little bit. So I know if you cut out for me, you cut out for everyone else. Repeat the thing about the 1st or 2nd round pick again.
So I think the value's fair, but if I'm the Bears, I want either a 2nd or a 3rd instead of the 4th.
So what if we did, and this is me just thinking on the fly, the 2 things I could think of is my first question to you being, if you want a 2nd or a 3rd, would you budge on the 1st next year not being a 1st next year? Or is that solidified? I need 2 firsts.
I would say I need 2 first.
Okay. So here's the deal then I would counter with if I was the Steelers, because the first thought I would have is just basically saying, like, okay, what if we next year's pick, instead of a 1st, it's a 2nd, I'll give you a 3rd. So it's a 1st and a 3rd this year, a 2nd next year. That's the first thought I had. But you said it has to be a 1st next year. The Bears, looking at their picks, what
if the Bears had to give an extra pick, I think that's what would make the deal get done. If they were to give like a 5th or something.
And here's the thing. You say a 5th. I was going to say a 4th or a 5th. So, like, depending on what it is. So, like, if you're trying to get a 2nd. So, really what you're trying to do is you're trying to get either a first, a second, and next year's first, or a first, a third, and next year's first.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I would say is then what I would counter with is if you want a second, I want one of your fourths, which they have their own, plus they have the Eagles from the Robert Quinn trade. If you want a third, I either want your pick in the 5th or the it would be the Patriots 5th round pick that the Ravens got in the Sean White trade between the Ravens and the Patriots in 2021. And then the Bears got the pick in the Roquan Smith deal between the Ravens and the Bears. So like, yeah, I feel like that could get done. You would just have to give up a 4th or a 5th if you're the Bears and you have it.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
The thing I'm thinking about though is like, if I'm the Steelers, I don't think you're going to be moving up for Carter because of what we just said. Is it worth the Steelers to move up to 9 to give up? Let's say they give up a first, a third, and a next year's first. They get a first, they get the 9th overall pick this year, plus a 4th round pick. Is that worth it to give up 2 first round picks and move back from 3 to 4 in order to get like Paris Johnson or Peter Saransky? Most people think it's going to be Paris Johnson if it's a tackle, but like, is that worth it to give up 2 firsts, move up to 9, take Paris Johnson?
So if it's what we just talked about, like that, if we're picking one of those 2 deals, I don't think so for either of those 2 players. I'm really willing to make this trade just for a blue chip prospect because I don't think there's much of a difference with
You mean one of the prospects from the Bears, maybe?
Yeah, no, sorry. So
or are you talking about one of the other prospects, not Johnson?
So you're asking if the Steelers are, if you're okay giving up like what the Steelers need to give up to move up.
Yeah, to take Johnson would be basically it.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm willing to give all that up just to move up for Johnson because I think you can still get a similar level tackle at 17.
Yeah, because like at 17, the tackles that could be there, and yet again, all mocks are different, but like Darnell Wright could be there, Broderick Jones could fall there. If both of those 2 are taken, you still have Anton Harrison. That'd be quite a reach for him. Cyrus Torrance, probably a reach for him, but he's not a tackle. So like really Darnell Wright and Broderick Jones are the ones. Because I don't think Peter Saransky falls past like 13. Like if Paris Johnson goes at 9 to the Bears, and let's say Saransky falls to 13, I don't think the Jets pass on him.
Yeah, so it's funny you say that because I don't know if you saw, but I think it was either today or yesterday. But a lot of people are starting, or not a lot. I've read that people are saying that they wouldn't be surprised if Darnell Wright is the first tackle taken.
Really? Over Paris Johnson?
Yeah, because he's the most NFL ready.
I thought Paris Johnson though was like the size and everything, and that's what everyone loved about him.
Paris Johnson has the higher ceiling, but with Darnell Wright, he's a plug and play right tackle. He doesn't have that. He doesn't have the upside necessarily, but he has the size. He has his footwork's a little iffy, and he's already a really good run blocker.
Yeah.
So people wouldn't be, or I wouldn't.
Odds that he's the number 1 tackle taken, Darnell Wright, that is, in your mind. What do you think? Odds that he's the first tackle off the board.
I would say. I'd say there's probably a good 60% chance.
Okay. See, so I'm going to say this too. That should tell you everything that you need to know about this draft class.
Yeah.
That even with the tackles, JD, most people have Darnell Wright as the 4th best tackle. Most big boards I've seen, it's all like chalk. It's Johnson at 1, Soronsky at 2, Broderick Jones 3, Darnell Wright 4. It should tell you everything you need to know about this draft, that even with the tackle position, that people are going, oh, the 4th best tackle on most boards could be the first tackle taken when we get to the draft on Thursday.
Yeah, like it's a crapshoot.
Mm-hmm.
It people will say, "Oh, Skoronski, he's the number 1 tackle,"
Mm-hmm.
but like you mentioned, and we've been saying, I think he's playing guard at the next level.
Yeah.
So, I mean, take that with
your grain of salt. The other thing I will say though, with the draft class being the way it is, it makes it fun as a mocker, because usually by this time, JD, there's a couple picks where you're like, all right, we know they're going to go here. All right, we know that they're going to solidify with this guy. Because of this draft class being the way it is, I think that's another thing that I can't remember if you said it after we hit record or before we hit record, but I'm going to say it anyways. You told me that you were talking to like people that you talked to about the draft, and it feels weird that we're heading into draft week, but it doesn't feel like we're heading into draft week. It feels like there's still another month to go until the draft. Like, this is usually where things start to solidify and news starts to be like, okay, this. It's kind of like, it's got that feeling that it's like, okay, the combine just ended.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't want to say I'm not excited for the draft, because it doesn't matter. The draft
I'm
is
always
my
excited
favorite.
for the draft.
Yeah. But yeah, it feels like we just started talking about the draft not too long ago, and here we are already, and it just kind of snuck up. It's just I think I said it before we hit record, but it's just really hard to get excited about a lot of these prospects, which have kind of like dulled, I guess, the excitement for the actual draft.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, it's crazy.
Are we gonna look back at this draft and call it the mid off? This was the 2023, the draft of mid.
It's gonna be one of two ways. It's gonna be exactly that. The half these guys are special teamers at best, or out of the league, or we're all gonna be wrong, and this might be the best draft class in the last 5 to 10 years.
Which do you hope for? That is a very loaded question, and I know I'm handing you this loaded question. I've pulled the pin on the grenade and I've handed it to you.
Selfishly, of course I want this draft to be good, because you always want good players coming into the league, especially now. But part of me wants it to be kind of rough, just so I could partially say I was right, even though I'm not the only one.
Oh, if we're going selfish, JD, there's only one way this draft has to go.
Yeah.
Mid off, except for Will Levis. Will Levis exceeds all expectations, rises to the top.
Yeah. But of course, I don't root for people's failures, unless you're a scumbag.
Very nice of you. No Schadenfreude from JD.
But yeah, I want this draft to be good, because I want to look back at this draft and maybe because after the draft is over and we're a year down the road, I love going back to watch some of these guys college film.
Yeah.
And
see how much they changed, how much they got better.
Yeah, so I want to be excited to do that. And if these guys just are all crap, well, then I'm probably not going to even do that, because what's the point?
Yeah, because you're not going to be excited for it.
Yeah.
I'll ask you, with the whole Steelers and moving up, I feel like we've hit everything with it. The Steelers moving up. We talked about Jalen Carter. We talked about the Bears moving down. That just leaves us, before we get to just guys we like in the top 30. Last thing we're going to talk about, the big meat and potato thing of it, is Quentin Johnson. And the thing I was shocked to, it kind of felt like for me, it came out of left field, But when I started doing research for my last mock, I was surprised. It started with the NFL coming out and saying, "Oh, we're not inviting Quentin Johnson to the draft room," which, number one, me as a fan, I hate that. I hate it. I feel like it's okay, if you're not going to get drafted, I can see why you wouldn't want to be there. And I could see why the NFL is like, you know what? We want to save you from that experience. However, on the other side, JD, I think it is I'm going to soften it up here. I'm not going to use the actual term. That fits into the wussification of our society in the you might not get drafted as high. So, we're going to save you from that. Here you go. We're not going to send you an invite. Me as a fan, JD, I sit there and I go, if there's a chance he goes high, you give him an invite, because me personally, I love seeing the guys that it's like, oh, he was expected to go 10, but he has fallen. And they keep putting the camera on him, and you could see the beads of sweat get bigger and bigger as each and every name is called after him. Thinking of it in the human aspect, I sound like a terrible person. But from an entertainment standpoint, there is nothing more entertaining of that to me than watching a guy. Better yet, was it Geno Smith who didn't go in the first round at all and then had to come back the next day? Didn't that happen to Geno?
That's happened to a few players.
Yeah, but usually quarterbacks are the ones that get it the most. Back. I want to say that happened to Geno Smith.
Because I know that I'm pretty sure that happened to Matt Corral last year.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, Geno went in the second round. That was 2013. So that draft was oh my God, that was the worst draft class that I think, was it the worst draft class? One of the worst draft classes that I could remember, JD. That was when
Eric Fisher went number one.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. That was it. So that one was the first, I count 20, let me see, I think it was 2013. Let's see. Yeah, I count 2013 as the first draft class that I started scouting, because that was the draft class where we weren't doing YouTube yet, but back then it was blogs. You had all the blogs, you're writing up articles about players. And I remember I did one on Luke Jokel. I was looking at, I'm trying to think if this was the draft class that had DeAndre Hopkins, Cordell Patterson. Yes, did one on him. But yeah, it was that was the Manti Te'o draft. So Geno Smith, was expected to go high. The quarterbacks in that draft class, you had, let's look at this. E.J. Manuel, who went 16 to the Bills.
I do remember that.
Yeah. Oh, man. Geno Smith was the second quarterback, and he was taken at 39. He was taken at 39. Yeah, E.J. Manuel was taken at 16. Then Geno. Then after that, the third quarterback off the board, third round pick, 73rd overall, drafted by the Buccaneers. Who was it? I'm quizzing you.
Oh,
drafted by the Buccaneers.
See, this draft kind of predates my draft knowledge, but I feel like I heard about
the ACC.
Because wasn't he turned out to be a backup quarterback?
He played for the Bears. Played for the Bears later in his career.
Wasn't Nick Foles? Oh,
something about his neck. That they called him a certain animal because of his neck.
Giraffe?
Yeah, the giraffe. Who was the red giraffe? The ginger giraffe.
Man, I don't know.
Mike Glennon.
Yeah, dude, I had his jersey in my head. I had his number, but I couldn't.
before the year even started, this guy was number 1 on a lot of big boards. Ended up getting drafted 4th round, 96th overall. No, 98th overall by the Eagles. Went to USC. What do dogs do, JD?
Bark. Rap.
No, they bark. You were right, bark. That's your hint, bark. His last name had the word bark in it.
Man, I don't know. Matt Barkley?
Matt Barkley. Oh. Many people before that year, he's the number 1 quarterback. He's going to go number 1. 4th round pick. Oh, man, I love like this. This is how I see this draft class being down the road. The only problem is the quarterbacks this year are probably way better than the quarterbacks.
Yeah, like they're actually they're athletic this year.
Every 10 years we get a draft class like this. But I digress. Quentin Johnson not being invited got me on the radar of this to where now many people don't think he's going to be taken in the first round. I will ask you that first, JD. Does Quentin Johnson fall all the way to day 2?
I don't think so. I think he's going to get taken. I don't think he's going to be as high as I originally thought. Well, he is my wide receiver 1.
I had him at 12 originally. Yeah. 12. Houston. I could
see him going anywhere from 25 to, I guess, 31, since that pick's forfeited, the 21st. So I could see him going, from 25 to 31.
2 teams. 2 teams that take him in my mind. 1, if the Ravens are gonna go wide receiver still, and he's there, they'd be dumb not to take him. The only reason why I say that is so Odell Beckham, that signing, muddies the water here a little bit. I will ask you, Odell Beckham being signed by the Ravens, does that mean the Ravens don't go wide receiver at 22 and look to go like cornerback or somewhere else?
I don't think so, because even if Odell pops off, they still need wide receiver help badly.
Yeah, I mean, to me, in my mock, I don't think I had them go wide receiver, but if they're going to go wide receiver, Quentin Johnson would be my pick, because basically Odell Beckham can get all your double teams and face the top corners for the teams that still like switch. Quentin Johnson can be on the other side, and it could be like, okay, go to work. While Odell's getting all the attention, all you gotta do is catch the ball, big guy. That's all you gotta do is catch the ball. Don't let it fall through your hands. Don't drop it. Catch the ball. You will benefit from that alone. So like, that's to me. Or the other team right after the Ravens, let's say the Ravens don't go wide receiver. Here's the thing with me. I think that the Vikings could go wide receiver because of the Thielen, him leaving us. My only question is, and yet again, me as a Vikings fan, I'm questioning this. Maybe it shouldn't even be a question, JD. Is Quentin Johnson the right receiver to have opposite of JJ?
If he ends up fixing his issues, like, because, well, I was gonna go into it, like, he has major drop issues. Like, he tends to like body catch the ball, which obviously doesn't always work out.
Yeah.
And or when he catches the ball, like, he's trying to think about the run before the ball's in his hands. So if he can fix those issues, then yes, I think the fit could actually work really well, because you just put either of those guys on the opposite side of each other, and then, okay, so like you said, who's gonna cover who, right? Like, who's gonna get the double team?
Well, JJ's getting the double team.
Yeah. Well, exactly. So if Quentin Johnson can then just catch the ball, then you're perfect. You're perfect. Like, I think his route running, I think, is fine. Obviously needs a little bit of improvement, but I wouldn't be worried about them bashing head, because I remember people said the same thing with the Bengals when we drafted Jamar Chase. Can Chase and Higgins play together? They're both outside wide receivers, and well, look how that's worked out.
Yeah, I I will say, looking at the other wide receiver needy teams, the two that I think of that I'll give my reasoning why I don't think they're going to go wide receiver, and then let you kind of agree or disagree with me. The first one being the Chargers. I don't think they're going to go, like, I think the Chargers, if they go offensive weapon, they're going to go more tight end because of their tight end in Everett being a free agent next year, and then basically being like, hey, let's get air barrel weapon, but we keep that tight end cheap because we don't know if Everett, might get paid next year, might bring up the contract value. Could the Chargers be a viable option to take a wide receiver, or do you agree with me that they wouldn't?
I mean, I think they could take a wide receiver, but if I'm betting money, I think they're going to go tight end.
Okay. The other one's the Giants, and the only thing with the Giants that I think about is it's either going to be one of three things: offensive lineman, wide receiver, or cornerback. The big one here in my mind is if Torrance from Florida falls. If Torrance from Florida falls, I take him with the Giants rather than going with a wide receiver.
Yeah, I would say. Honestly, I would say if I'm the Giants, I'm leaning wide receiver. Okay. You just gave Danny Dimes that money. You've got to give him some help.
They shouldn't have given Danny Dimes some money, but that's
that's a conversation for a different day.
That's besides the point. I mean, the other thing too is like the wide receivers in general, I think are going to be interesting because I'll ask you. There are some reports I see that it's like, oh, we could see, what is it? I gotta count because the guys that I usually see in mocks. So there are reports that we could see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 or 5 wide receivers in the first round. But then there's other reports that are like, oh, well, yeah, I know the mockers are all saying that there's going to be like 5 wide receivers, but from what the experts and what the actual scouts are saying, there's probably going to be only 1, maybe 2 wide receivers taken in the first round. Do you think there's a chance we only see 1 wide receiver in the first round?
I wouldn't say 1. If I had to put money on it, I would say, like, I'd put if the over under was 3.5, mm-hmm. I would do the under. I would say a solid because I think it'd be like 3. Just because everything
I wouldn't take that bet.
Because everything I've been hearing is just like you said, the NFL teams and front offices, they're gonna be pushing wide receiver till later in the draft because everybody's assuming that they'll be able to get their guy or someone that they have graded a little bit higher in the second, third, fourth round and not have to reach all the way in the first to get one.
Before I say what I'm going to say, I'm going to ask you, is there any chance the Packers go with a wide receiver in the first? Especially after losing Allen Lazard?
I think so. I mean, I mocked them a wide receiver, I think, 2 out of my 3 mocks.
Also, is Aaron Rodgers staying? Because the deal's not done yet.
I don't think he's staying. I was really convinced that
a deal would be done by now?
Yeah, because my assumption was that the Jets were going to have to give up the 13th pick. And it still could happen. I mean, we're in draft week. Maybe things are going to heat up now. But I thought that deal would already be done. But I don't think... I think he's played his last game as a Packer. If that means he retires, okay. Maybe it's a move we see in the summer. But I don't think he's playing for the Packers anymore.
Because, like, there's a part of me that thinks if, let's say, a Quentin Johnson falls. Let's say a Quentin Johnson falls to the second round. There's a part of me that goes, okay, Green Bay, you're at 45. Trade up to 32. Jump the Texans. Get Quentin Johnson at 32.
Yeah.
I don't know. Haven't looked at the draft capital. Don't know what the trade would be. This is just kind of like thought comes into Ricky's head, spews out of the mouth. That's what you're getting here. That's what you get few days before draft is these unfiltered kind of thoughts sometimes. But like, I personally, I don't know about you, JD. I think Quentin Johnson is still my number 1 rated wide receiver. I loved Quentin Johnson this year. There's a little biasy because I watched a lot of TCU games this year. I loved Quentin Johnson from what I saw. Loved seeing him play. However, like the thing is at this point, like the thing early on was JSN's injury. The injury isn't really a question mark anymore. And I feel like that's why he's getting pushed above, but I don't know. I think I still like Quentin Johnson at number 1, even though that might be my bias showing.
Yeah, I like I was saying earlier, I had him at number 1 for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But now, after diving more into his film and reading what like other scouts had to say,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure I can keep him there. Like I would probably say JSN is my number 1, but like again, I don't feel great about that.
Yeah.
If he's only going to be a slot wide receiver.
Mm-hmm. You know who's a wide receiver I've been seeing a lot about?
Zay Flowers.
Zay Flowers. I don't know if you've read the stuff, but apparently the Patriots are very high on Zay Flowers.
I saw that.
And one of the things, I gotta pull it up. I was
From
talking
Boston College.
Yeah, he's from Boston College, but I was talking to Tim about this. Let me see if I can find it really quick. Give me a second. I'm gonna find the article because I have it in my history. There was a quote from the Bears wide receiver coach that I thought was very, very interesting. Because so basically what it is they're Tyke Tolbert, that was his name. Tyke Tolbert said something about, this is the one thing I hate about pulling stuff up live. Tolbert and not being able to find it. Basically, he had a comment about like what wide receivers he likes in the draft, and basically people are reading into it, and it's like, oh, do the Bears like Zay Flowers as well? And then that made me think, could the Bears trade, like, and yet again, this is kind of going back, but I'll ask again. They trade back with the Steelers, trade back with another team while staying in the first, take a Zay Flowers and get basically like, hey, we got Justin Fields, the weapon we want, but we got picks along with it because the Bears have 2 more trade backs then.
I'm not sure. Because I still don't know if he's a first round talent. I don't know if he's a first round player because he has the speed. He's fast as crazy, and but he's so tiny.
Mm-hmm.
Like I forget what his height was. I want to say he's like 5'10".
Yeah,
but I heard he's like $160.
Mm-hmm. So basically, I found the clip. He was Tyke Tolbert was interviewed by the Chicago Tribune paper here in Chicago. And this is what he had to say about the types of wide receivers he looks for and likes. He says, people ask me all the time, do you like big guys, small guys, inside guys, outside, whatever? I look for playmakers, Tolbert said. No matter what shape, size, or color they are, if they can make plays, then you dig more into it. And then you look for guys who can run, guys who are intelligent, guys who are multi-positional. You look for all that stuff. He then elaborated on the size and speed don't matter as much as one key trait all top wide receivers tend to have. The quote is, the thing I like the most in a receiver is his ability to cut and separate. Now, if you have someone who is fast and who can cut and separate, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, and Zay Flowers can do all of that.
And a lot of people are looking to Zay Flowers in that.
Yeah, he's one. I'd say he's one of the better route runners in this class, and I want to say he's the fastest wide receiver in the draft. So
if he's, let's say Zay Flowers doesn't get taken first round, do the Bears trade up in the second to get him?
Do they need to trade up?
Their first, second round pick, So their 32nd overall pick is with the Steelers.
Oh, yes.
So they wouldn't have a pick until 53 otherwise.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I mean, yeah, like, because they wouldn't have to get, if you're just trading up a couple spots, because I don't think they would have to trade. I wouldn't say they have to trade into the top 5 of the second round.
Yeah.
To get him. I could see them getting him. Maybe trade up 5 spots and you'd be able to get him.
Yeah. Dude, it's going to be so interesting to see how these wide receivers go and where they go, because like I don't know who's right. If there's going to be a lot of wide receivers taken in the first, if there's going to be, like you said, like the under and there's only like 3 taken, I'll be honest, I don't know. But yet again, it goes back to this draft class to me a week before the draft or even entering draft week, I still don't have a gauge on it.
Yeah.
I can't put my finger on the pulse and be like, that's it.
Can I just say a little hot take quickly?
Go ahead. I love hot takes. The hotter, the better.
Maybe it's not scorching hot, but I'm willing to say that the second round of this year's draft might be the most interesting round out of the
I don't think that's
draft.
a hot take at all. I think it's the truth.
Really?
I think it's the truth.
I haven't seen anybody saying that. All the things I've seen is all the hype for the first round and the first round.
That's just because it's the first round. Everyone loves the first round. It gets its own night. It's on a pedestal. Yeah,
because like the more I've been thinking about it, I'm like looking at like potential second round mocks and stuff, and I'm just like, man, the people are just firing darts at a board here, and I think you're gonna see a lot of people or a lot of players who people have valued as like 4th to 5th rounders make their way into the mid-second.
Yeah, I mean, what's going to be interesting is, so you and I have this planned already. Thursday is going to happen. Usually what we would do for draft night, when we did it pre-pandemic, was the draft would happen, and then that night we would record a podcast. Usually it'd be Sean and I, because Dave would be like, I got to go home and I got to sleep for work. You and I aren't going to do that. Both of us have to sleep and go to work the next morning.
Yeah.
Friday night, though, you and I are recording that podcast. Basically, you're getting an additional draft room in the off week, because we will have, basically how it's going to work is we are going to have the draft room be, we're going to have our first round one, and then afterwards we're going to do some content that is just like looking at the entire draft, but splitting it up into divisions. My point being is, while you and I are recording that first round like reactions on Friday, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to have on my computer the draft going probably.
Yeah.
And we're probably going to react to some things while talking about what happened the night before.
Yeah, well, because
that one might be a mixture of the two.
The second round starts a bit earlier, I think, right?
Yeah, it usually starts about an hour before, I think, or maybe 2 hours before. So, like, depending on when you and I record, but like, there's a possibility while we're recording our thoughts about Thursday that something happens on Friday and we go, whoa, pause here. We're talking about it now. So
Aaron
like,
Rodgers traded.
Why hasn't it been done yet? Why has like the Jets went out and got everything they need. We're going to get Alan Lazard. We're going to get everything that Aaron Rodgers wants. Hey, we want this pick and that pick. No dice. It's like, what? For Aaron Rodgers? You know you don't have a quarterback, right? You know you have Zach Wilson on your roster, right? Right? Zach Wilson? Yeah, it's Zach Wilson.
Yeah. Come on, Ricky. That was your guy.
That was my guy. I forget that he was. Was he my guy?
Yeah, man. You were banging the drum that he could be better than Trevor Lawrence.
That's right. No.
It's okay.
No, it wasn't that. I'd have to go back and listen. I don't think it was that he could be better than Trevor Lawrence. I definitely thought he
should be the number one pick.
I definitely thought he was better than Trey Lance. You're right. Zach Wilson was my guy. And see, that's the thing with Will Levis that kills me. Will Levis. So Josh Allen and Zach Wilson, two guys that I liked in the draft. Will Levis could be either or.
He's on either side of the spectrum.
He could either be Zach Wilson or he could be Josh Allen. Two guys that I really liked.
Okay.
Last thing, JD. Who's a guy out of the top 30 that you really like? I'll ask you this. How many do you have?
Well, I have quite a few, but I'm just gonna leave it to probably two.
Okay.
Just so we're not here all night.
You get two, I get two.
I really like Emmanuel Forbes.
Okay.
The corner from Mississippi State.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's someone who could sneak into the early 20s of the draft, but a lot of people have him outside the top 30.
Yeah.
He's just super lengthy. He's very fluid with his movements, and in my opinion, he's good at jamming the wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
But the fear is that since that's in college, he has a very thin frame.
Yeah.
So he's really just lanky and obviously going up against NFL wide receivers, you're gonna have concern that he's just gonna get bullied.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he has the production. I want to say he's one of the younger prospects in this year's class.
Yeah.
So he has room for development there. And yeah, he's just somebody that I don't think is really getting enough hype that I think should.
My first one. I'll ask you this, JD. I'll let you pick. Do you want my Homer favorite or my how do I put this? My Homer favorite or my I watched him all year. I have a biasy with him because I really liked him from the first time I saw him.
Go with your Homer.
Sidney Brown out of Illinois, the safety.
Oh, I
love Sidney Brown, and most of it has to be because he's from Illinois. But I look at Sidney Brown and what he brought to that Illinois team. There was a part of me, it pains me to say that when it was he's going into the draft, I was like, no, don't leave your brother. But I love Sidney Brown, and I can't wait to see what team gets him. Probably day 3. But yeah, that would be my Homer pick is Sidney Brown from Illinois.
Well, the funny thing with him is I actually really liked him coming into the year because last year, I don't know if you remember, but my favorite safety last year was Kirby Joseph.
Yep.
I freaking loved him. So when you're watching Kirby Joseph, well, you see Sidney Brown as well, and he stuck out to me a lot, and I think that's a really good pick. My second player, he's somebody that's actually really fallen down draft boards because I remember he kind of started mid-tier, rose up, and fell back down. But Isaiah Foskey.
Oh, yes. He was
from Notre Dame.
Let's see, since I have it pulled up here, in my 1.0, he was the 19th overall pick. And then I believe in my 2.0, in my 2.0, he had fallen to 29. So 1929 then wasn't even a first rounder after that.
Yeah, I'm not sure he will actually sneak into the first round, but if he's not, I think he'll be an early second round pick.
Yeah.
He has the production, which I really like, but kind of like what I said with Emmanuel Forbes, he's very lanky, skinny, so I'm not really sure. He kind of reminds me of Gregory Rousseau.
Yeah.
A little bit.
I loved Gregory Rousseau in that draft.
I did, and then I kind of fell off a little bit.
No, I loved Gregory Rousseau. There were people like you, JD, that fell off, and I was like, no, I'm keeping the faith.
But yeah, Isaiah Foskey, I think he has really good bend when he's on the edge, and that's something you look for. I think he does get a little lost when he's asked to stop the run.
Yeah.
But I think that could get better coming with experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's just somebody I really freaking like, and I hope he can sneak his way into the first round, but I'm not sure.
JD, I'm going to match your could sneak into the first round with my could sneak into the first round. Jalen Hyatt. I love Jay. There's a part of me that, you know how I said that Quentin Johnson could be like a nice fit for the Vikings, and I asked you his fit next to JJ, I think I love Jalen Hyatt. Like, I want the Vikings to draft Jalen Hyatt because I think Jalen Hyatt on the opposite side of Justin Jefferson would just be like chef's kiss. They are different body sizes, but can both take the ball deep. Like, Jalen Hyatt is speed intensified. That, like, I love what he did at Tennessee this year, to where it's like, I think he should be a first rounder, but I don't think someone will take him in the first round.
See, I'm kind of on the opposite side. Like, I really like him, but I think he will sneak into the first round. I think in my last two mocks, I want to say I had you guys, I'm trying to find it, but I want to say I had you guys drafting him in the first, and then I also had him going to the Ravens in one. It's I think I had him going to the Ravens in my last mock that I did after the combine. I think you kind of sold me on him.
I love Jalen.
I wasn't very high on him like after the season, but then when I actually broke down his film, and how he did, I want to say at the combine, he balled out.
Because what I think is, so to me, I think that the Chiefs are going to try to move up in the draft to get an edge rusher. I am still married to the idea that they call up Green Bay, say, hey, you need picks. We got picks to give you. Let's make a trade. Chiefs move up to 15. They get their edge rusher. Might be Van Ness, but it'll probably be Nolan Smith. And then Green Bay moves back to 31. And at 31, I think that's where you take Jalen Hyatt. Like in the Green Bay, you get a wide receiver, but also you get draft assets by making that trade with the Chiefs. Like, that is something that in my mind, I'm like, it makes too much sense to not be done.
Jalen Hyatt fits. He that's the thing that, like, with him,
fits almost anywhere.
Like, yeah, exactly. Like, because I could be wrong, but I feel like he could play some of the slot if needed.
He's small. Like,
I
want to say he's small enough to, even though he did in Tennessee.
Yeah, like, I was trying to find,
because he's 6 foot 220 or 6 foot 276.
Yeah, so you could play him in the slot because I think he has the route running ability, and he's able to get separation right off the line of scrimmage. So I don't think that's an issue, but like you said, I think he can also play on the outside and be effective. So I think he's a fit anywhere he goes. He in my opinion, he has potential to be. He could be the best wide receiver of this class.
I think he will be. Like, and that is all my biasy too. Like, I am totally wearing that. I am a Jalen Hyatt fanboy. There's a part of me that's like, wherever he goes, I want to get his jersey, unless it's Green Bay. Because I can't wear a Packers jersey. That'd be like, JD, your favorite prospect. You're like, I'm getting his jersey, and then he went to the Steelers. You'd be like, nope, can't do it.
Nope. Well, I'm pretty sure if it was him or the other Tennessee receiver, Tillman, but I think it was it wasn't. Yeah, it was Hyatt. He freaking torched the Gators in that game last year, and just gave me nightmares. But I mean, so when he was a Tennessee Volunteer, didn't like him, but as a draft prospect, I really like him.
'Cause it is great to be a Tennessee Volunteer. Great to be a Tennessee Volunteer. JD, any thoughts before we wrap this up? And last time everyone sees us until draft day.
Hopefully we can start getting more news coming.
You're like, hopefully we have things to talk about, like, on the draft day.
Yeah, a little before the the draft actually starts. But yeah, I mean, we hit on a lot of stuff through this draft coverage, even though we got a little bit of a late start on it.
Yeah, next, I was talking about this to you. So the whole draft room idea, I had it, and then like I just decided, hey, like, you're in on it, I'm in on it, let's go on it. And like, I'll announce it here too, kind of the official announcements of like, next year it'll be a lot easier because throughout college football season, JD and I will be talking draft stuff, and we'll basically have an entire draft cycle together. starting with, so the schedule, little things to break down for those of you who care. That's why I put this at the end. Here's basically how our schedule works is this Thursday, the 27th, 15 minutes before the draft or before the first overall pick. Check out our Twitter page at MVP_vids. I'll put out an exact time, which will be live. We're going to go live, JD and I reacting to the draft. We might have some MVP sports alum coming in, watching it with us. Friday, the 28th, JD and I are going to do it non-live, but we are going to record our thoughts about the first round. Those will go up Friday night, Saturday mornings, might be the wee hours of the morning on Saturday. So for the weekend, you'll get to hear our thoughts on the first round. Then the week of the 24th, sometime in that week, I think, JD, we said Monday, we were going to record them. And basically, we're going to do individual, like divisional, like we're going to recap the draft, but like section it off where like one video is this division, another video is this division to kind of make them all even. And then pretty much that's it for us until we get further down the line and we start to get closer to football season, because actually on May 5th, that will be the first Patreon episode of NBA draft coverage, as it's official, JD. The NBA team for the draft room is here. It will be myself along with Dave Oster talking NBA draft. So I kind of take the baton from us and I say, here you go, Dave. Let's run with it. As
wait,
the reason why we hadn't announced it sooner is I will be completely transparent. I was trying to, even though I love talking about sports in the draft, I was trying to get a separate NBA team, so it was separate than the NFL team, but things fell through, couldn't find that second person. So I was like, I will do what I have to do. I love doing it anyways, so I'll stay on. Dave comes in. It's basically swap out JD for Dave, and we go NBA until kind of we get back right before football season, probably in August, is when, we might have some off time. We haven't decided about that because the NBA draft happens. And then, there's summer league and stuff, but we'll decide that. Maybe there's no off time. Maybe there is. Who knows? This is a work in progress right now with how everything's going to go, because we pretty much went right into it. But remember, if you want to get videos like the draft room 4 days early, you can check out our Patreon, patreon.com/most valuable podcast site. No, that's the old one. MVP vids. I think it's just MVP vids. It's down below. The link's down below. You can get videos 4 days early if you're a Plus member, or you can just get your name debuted at the end, or it's not debuted. I keep saying JD debuted. It's not debuted. Featured. Your name featured. Shown appreciation after videos. If you're a basic member, you get content early. If you're a Plus member, if you want to join discussions with our Discord, we got a free Discord down below. Go ahead and join it. Click the link. We've got a great community talking sports each and every day. And also, let us know what you guys think down below in that comment section about anything we talked about today. Want to thank you guys for watching. We will be back on Thursday to live stream the NFL draft. But as always, have a good day, everybody. As always, we'd like to thank the people who make these videos possible, our patrons whose names are displayed on the screen right now. If you would like to support the channel and become a patron, click that Patreon icon in the bottom right. And if you want to check out another episode of The Draft Room, click the icon in the upper left. Again, thanks for watching.